On the morning of the 12th of March 2011, Rachel Ertley, a Lululemon store manager, arrived at work to prepare opening up the popular athletic store. Upon entering, she noticed that the place was an utter mess. She would call out, suspecting that she wasn't alone. She was right. A voice moaned back to her at the back of the store. Frightened for her safety, she would exit the store and call 911. While on the phone, a man named Ryan Hoare was arriving to open up the Apple store next door to Lululemon. He would witness what was going on, and upon learning what Rachel encountered, he offered to go inside and search the store. What he, and eventually Rachel, would witness would shock the affluent neighborhood of Bethesda, Maryland, and spark a murder investigation that would attract nationwide attention. Hello, and welcome to the channel. When Ryan entered the Lululemon store, he found the place in utter disarray. It appeared as though the store had been completely ransacked, and what was more concerning was that as he went deeper into the store, he found blood spattered all over the walls and even on the ceiling. With it now being evident that the voice who moaned to Rachel earlier had been attacked, Ryan made the choice to go in deeper and try to find whoever it was. As he did so, he would first stumble across the body of a woman who was lying face down in a pool of blood. He could see that she wasn't moving, and it was apparent she had been dead for some time. Knowing the voice from earlier couldn't have come from the woman he was looking at now, Ryan bravely made the decision to keep searching. He would eventually find a second woman in the Lululemon store bathroom. She was zip-tied and appeared to be badly beaten, and she was also bleeding quite badly. But she was alive. Ryan had found the woman responsible for the moaning and rushed out to tell Rachel, who was still on the phone to the police. When police arrived, they quickly secured the area and went inside the store. They too would notice the condition of the store, as well as the sheer amount of blood located all over. They'd also find the two women that Ryan discovered. Concerned over the condition of the second woman, she'd be released from the zip ties and she'd be rushed to hospital to assess her physical state. Rachel Ertley unsurprisingly knew both women. They were her colleagues Jayna Murray and Brittany Norwood. Born on the 22nd of November 1980, Jayna was described by her friends as being a thrill-seeker and an adventurous woman. In fact, on the 10th of December 2010, she uploaded a video of herself bungee jumping. Before graduating from George Washington University in Washington, D.C. with a Bachelor of Science degree in 2003, she would spend 2 years at St. Louis University in Madrid, Spain. At the time of her death, she was working towards obtaining a Master of Communication and Master in Business Administration at Johns Hopkins University, Washington. Her final paper that she was writing was about Lululemon. Jayna was a well-liked person who loved animals, travelling and dancing. It was no surprise that her passing had impacted her friends and family greatly. Tragically, her boyfriend at the time was planning to propose to her. Brittany Norwood was assessed at hospital, and while she had sustained multiple cuts and lacerations to her body, they were mostly superficial wounds which were easily treatable. Knowing this, police decided to interview her that night on the 12th of March to understand what took place in the store while her memory was still fresh. Brittany told police that their shift at Lululemon had been a relatively quiet one, with nothing of note happening. The pair closed up the store as normal, and by 9:45 p.m. that evening, the pair had locked up and said their goodbyes. However, as Brittany was making her way home, she reached into her bag to pull out her Metro card, only to realise she had left her wallet in the staff room. Left with little choice, she reached out to Jayna in the hope she would be willing to come back, as Jayna was the one with the keys to the store. Expecting her to be annoyed with her request, it turned out Jayna was more than happy to help out, as she had also left her laptop at the store, and so the pair agreed to meet up to collect their belongings. When Jayna and Brittany reconvened at Lululemon, Jayna unlocked the store and the pair entered. But as they did, two men donning all black and wearing ski masks ambushed the pair. They forced the women into the store, and after restraining the terrified women, they proceeded to beat and sexually assault them both. Brittany would say that Jayna resisted, which caused the two men to ferociously attack her, killing her in the process. Brittany also told police that throughout her ordeal, a coat hanger had been used on her. It goes without saying that such a horrific crime that took place in an otherwise safe, affluent neighbourhood caused shockwaves across Bethesda and the nation as a whole. Police carried out a detailed investigation of the store itself to find any clues that could catch these two twisted individuals. Two male shoe prints had been imprinted onto the blood on the floor that were determined to belong to a person with a shoe size 14. They also found that the safes had been cleared out, indicating that the motive may have initially been robbery, but later became an opportunistic attack once Jayna and Brittany came back. When investigators requested CCTV footage of the store, they were disappointed to find that Lululemon didn't contain any internal cameras, but there was an external one placed outside the door to the store. Upon reviewing the footage, they found that two men wearing all black had walked past the store shortly before the attack. Believing this to be a solid lead, they would look into this further in the hopes of identifying the two men. There was good news and bad news. The good news was that they successfully identified the men, but the bad news was that the men were unconnected to the murder, as they were simply walking home from work that night and had rock-solid alibis. Police also spoke with staff who were working at the Apple store that night, where they learned that they overheard voices coming from the Lululemon store. At around 10 PM, they could hear one woman saying,
"Talk to me. Don't do this. Talk to me. What's going on?"
This was shortly followed by blood-curdling screams, and they could hear her crying for help, screaming, quote,
"God help me. Please help me."
While they didn't report what they heard to police, it was understood that they were disturbed enough for one staff member to complain to security, but it emerged that they didn't follow up on the complaint. While the police investigation was ongoing, Mary Ripple, the medical examiner tasked with carrying out Jayna Murray's autopsy, got to work. She would identify 331 separate wounds on Jayna's body, with 105 of these wounds being defensive injuries. There were multiple cuts, abrasions, and cutting wounds across her face and body. It was determined that there were at least 5 tools used to inflict Jayna's injuries, tools which were determined to have come from a toolbox located near Jayna. This included a knife, hammer, rope, a box cutter, and merchandise peg. What was even more tragic was that Mary concluded her attack had lasted approximately 15 minutes, and she'd been alive throughout the vast majority of the ordeal. It was determined that the death blow came from a knife wound located on the back of her neck, which snapped her spinal cord and penetrated into her brain. What Mary wasn't able to find was any sign that Jayna had been sexually assaulted, despite Brittany's assertion that they had both been. Interestingly, despite the fact that the pants both women were wearing had been cut in the crotch area, Brittany too was examined, and like Jayna, there was no sign that she too had been sexually assaulted, which was in direct conflict with her claims. Furthermore, a forensic examination on Brittany's clothes showed that both hers and Jayna's blood was present. 2 days later, Brittany was visited by police at her home to talk again. They asked her why she seemed to get off significantly lightly compared to Jayna. Brittany's response was that the masked men apparently said that she was fun to f off. She also told police that they allegedly used racial slurs while abusing her. When she was pressed on why Jayna's blood was found on her, she explained this away by saying the men had pushed her onto Jayna. Brittany was asked to visit the police station again on the 16th of March 2011 to provide fingerprint and DNA samples in order to rule her out as a suspect. While she was there, she was asked about Jayna's car, specifically whether she knew what it looked like. Brittany told police that she didn't. By now, police were beginning to question Brittany's story. Alongside the evidence showing no sexual assault had taken place, police identified that the shoe prints found in the blood came from shoes Lululemon provide customers when trying on clothes. These shoes aren't for sale. Additionally, police also thought it odd that the killers would not bring their own weapons, instead resorting to using tools found within the store. It also didn't help Brittany that her DNA was found all over Jayna's car, a car that she couldn't even describe to police. The next day, March 17th, Brittany's brother Chris and sister Marissa reached out to police and told them that Brittany had more information for them about Jayna's car, but was too scared to share this with them. It was then arranged for Brittany to speak with police again on the 18th of March to divulge this new information. Brittany would say that prior to being sexually assaulted, she was instructed by both men to move Jayna's car. Unbelievably, she said that the men allowed her to do this alone, but said that they knew where she lived, and should she try to flee or call police, they would find out and kill her whole family. While she was expressively telling police how afraid for her life she was, they stopped her. By now, police were convinced that the two men didn't exist, and that Brittany knew more than she was letting on. More accurately, they were convinced she was responsible for Jayna Murray's murder. To understand the rationale behind Brittany Norwood killing Jayna Murray, we need to go back to the beginning to build a bigger picture. Born in Seattle, Washington, on the 19th of May 1982, Brittany came from a large family which consisted of 8 siblings, 4 brothers and 4 sisters. Her life growing up seemed to be very good, in that her parents were well educated and provided their children with a loving atmosphere. Financially, they were stable, with her father, Earl Norwood, owning his own business. Growing up, Brittany was incredibly passionate about sports, in particular football, or soccer for my American audience. She made the difficult decision to leave for New York to join Stony Brook University. Here she joined Stony Brook Seawolves in 2001 as a defender and impressed in her first season, with her being selected to the all-rookie team in her first season. She would be named in the NSCAA Adidas All-Northeast Region team in 2002, as well as being named in the Soccer Buzz All-Northeast Region team that same year. As a defender, she was quoted as being a linchpin of the squad and was clearly talented given the recognition and plaudits she was receiving. But things would soon change, after it became apparent that Brittany couldn't be trusted by her own teammates. Soon after joining the team, her classmates noticed that personal items, such as makeup or small amounts of money, would go missing. Brittany would be confronted over the missing items and admitted to stealing them. From that moment, the trust was broken. Brittany would see her game time reduced, and her teammates would spend less time with her, which would have a negative impact on Brittany mentally. After leaving school, she would work various jobs and remain active, but the issue of stealing would remain a focal point for her, with Brittany reportedly stealing from her places of work, leading to her being fired as a result. She did have ambitions though. Brittany wanted to become a personal trainer and one day own her own gym. But for now, she was working at Lululemon, and just like before, things began going missing. On the night of the 11th of March, as Jayna and Brittany were closing up, Jayna conducted a bag check and found a pair of yoga leggings with the security tag still attached. When Jayna confronted Brittany, Brittany would tell her that she bought the leggings from another colleague and the tags had been mistakenly left on. Jayna, however, was unconvinced, and Brittany suspected this. Fearing that Jayna would report her findings to management, she came up with the idea to lure her back to Lululemon. There she confronted Jayna and attempted to persuade her not to report her to management, but Jayna had already done so, around 6 minutes after locking up. It was at this moment that Brittany began her attack. Jayna fled to the back and tried to escape out of a back door, but Brittany caught up with her and over the course of the next 15 to 20 minutes, Jayna was subjected to utter hell. After Brittany killed Jayna, she moved Jayna's car and remained there for approximately an hour and a half. She used the size 14 shoes to leave footprints in Jayna's blood to make it appear as though men had gotten in. She then proceeded to cut holes into the crotch area of both their trousers, as well as injure and tie herself up in the bathroom, and she remained there until she and Jayna would be found the next morning. Brittany Norwood was arrested on the 18th of March 2011 for the murder of Jayna Murray, and her trial began in late October that same year, which would last 8 days. She would be found guilty of the first-degree murder on the 2nd of November 2011, after a jury deliberated for just 1 hour. On the 27th of January 2012, Brittany Norwood was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Norwood would later appeal her conviction, arguing that her constitutional rights were infringed, as her Miranda rights were not read to her. But this was thrown out on the 29th of April 2015, subsequently ending any chance of her being released. I'd actually written the script for this case a couple of months ago, but because of work and other cases which caught my eye, this one got pushed back. However, I came back to this story after seeing my good friend The Crime Reel cover this case on his channel. I've linked his video in the description for you to get his perspective, and I highly recommend checking him out if you're unfamiliar with his work. As far as cases go, this is one of the more senseless stories I've covered. While there's never a good excuse to end someone's life in cold blood, to do so because of a pair of leggings is utterly beyond me. Instead of accepting responsibility for her own actions, Brittany is now rotting away in Maryland Correctional Institute for Women. She's never being released, and I hope Jayna's friends and family can find some solace in that. Others who have covered this story have also looked at the culture within Lululemon, but for me I don't really think this was too relevant to the story. While I can agree that some aspects of their business do seem weird from the outside looking in, overall I believe Brittany simply couldn't handle the shame of being caught stealing again, and it was this that was the driving force behind what she did. Besides, many companies these days try to instill their values and ideals onto their staff. Lululemon isn't really different in that respect. Perhaps they were just ahead of the curve. Thank you for watching. If you found this case informative, please consider hitting the like button and sharing this story with anyone you know who shares an interest in true crime content. If you want to support the channel in other ways, you can subscribe to the channel for more true crime content as it's released. You may also wish to consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a channel member, where you'll receive exclusive content and shoutouts at the end of each video. Speaking of which, a special thank you to my current channel members: Needle and Fur, The Alabastard, Mr. Gently Benevolent, Amanda, and Krista Lands. Thank you for supporting the channel. Until next time, take care, and goodbye. For now.